I had been on the highway patrol about 18 or 19 years whenever I felt God's call upon my life to be a pastor. And some of you, I'm sure, have heard this story before, but just to kind of give you the short version, I accepted the call, and I asked God to open the doors for me, because I wasn't sure how I was supposed to get to where I needed to be. But I said, I'm willing to do it, I just don't know how to get there. And so I had checked with the retirement board to see what it would take to retire, things like that, and I tried to do my part of it, but basically I just didn't have enough years to retire. And so I kept on working, realizing that when God opened the door in His timing, that I would make that move. I enjoyed my job. It's where God had placed me and had blessed me, and I enjoyed what I did. Well, an election occurred. We got a new president. One of the campaign promises of that particular president was that he was going to revamp some retirement issues. I don't understand how it all worked, but basically what happened was I had the opportunity to what they call purchase non-earned time, and also I could roll money from a 401k into the retirement system to purchase that time. Those things couldn't be done before. So anyway, it came to my attention that that could be done. And so when that happened, I felt like, God had opened that door. And so I set all of that into motion. And when all of that came together, then I ended up with enough years to retire. And so I did, went to Bible college, and the rest of that is history. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to be able to spend a few moments with you today. We're in Judges, and in Judges we find that there is no leader. Joshua has died many years before. The people have gone against God. They no longer really know much about God because the parents did not teach the children and bring them up the way that they should have. They've just been doing whatever they wanted to do. Other countries have come in, have invaded them, have stolen all of their animals and crops, and they're starving to death. And so they cry out to God, and God sends an angel to Gideon and tells Gideon, you need to do something about this. God's going to help you to do this. Well, you can just imagine what's going on in Gideon's mind. He's wondering, is this really real? I mean, I know this angel has come to me and told me that God's with me and I can do it, but Gideon wanted some reassurance. I mean, and I understand that, because Gideon's talking about taking a group of people that have not really been an army in a long time, and grab their swords and pitchforks and go out and fight these people that are invading them. And he wants some assurance. And so what he does, he prays, and he says, I'd like to ask you to prove something to me if you can. And so he wanted to think of something that maybe only God could do. And so he takes a piece of wool, a piece of fleece, and he lays it out there on the ground. And in his prayer he says, God, if this really is what you want me to do, then I'm going to go to sleep, and when I wake up tomorrow morning, if you could let the dew, the moisture from the air, fall on the fleece only, and allow the ground and the grass to be dry, then I'll know that this is something you really want me to do. So he went to sleep that night, and he woke up the next morning, and the fleece was just wet, and the ground was just as dry as could be. He was even able to wring the fleece out and got like a whole cup full of water that came out of that fleece. Now, it may sound bad whenever you read this story in Judges, what he did next, but I'm going to tell you, I can understand. God has asked me to do some things that, I kind of put the fleece out there. That's where that expression comes from, is lay out the fleece and kind of see whether this is a good idea or not. And so what Gideon did, he said, God, I'd like to get one more time. I'm hoping you won't be mad at me, but this is a big thing that you're asking of me, and so I'd like to try it one more time. He said, and this time, I'm going to lay out the fleece, and if the dew can fall everywhere, the ground and the grass, everything be wet, but let the fleece be dry. And so he went to sleep that night. And when he woke up the next morning, the dew was all over the place. Everything was wet. And when he went to the fleece was just as dry as it could be. You see, God had proven to Gideon that this really was what he was supposed to do. Some people would say that a person shouldn't test God. And I don't believe we should test God, but I do believe that it's all right for us to ask God. I could go on and on for hours probably and tell you about all the fleeces that I have laid out in my life. God, if this is your will, then let this door open. And if this is not your will, then how about let this door close? And God has seemingly always opened the doors that should be open, closed the doors that should be closed. There have been a few times in my life where I have pushed the door open that God was trying to close, and none of those things ever worked well. You see, it says in the New Testament, it says, ask and ye shall receive. Knock and the door will be open to you. A lot of people could interpret that a lot of different ways, but the way that I have experienced that in my life is that whenever I ask, along with asking, I try to do it the way Jesus did it. I'm not trying to compare myself to Jesus now, but I'm just trying to follow the example that he set. When Jesus had a big task coming up, he knew that he was getting ready to be arrested and betrayed and beaten and hung on a cross. I can only fathom what was going through his mind. And he prayed a prayer and he said, Father, if there's another way that this can be accomplished, he said, I'm all for it. But not my will, but yours be done. I believe God honors that type of prayer. And so whenever something comes up in our life and we're not quite sure what we ought to do or how we should handle it, I believe we can go to our Heavenly Father and kind of lay that fleece out there like Gideon did and say, I'm not sure this is what you want me to do. And if this is, could you just open the door wide open or give me some type of confirmation that this truly is what you want me to do? And if it's not, would you just slam the door shut and not allow me to do it? And I have seen in my life over and over and over where God has honored that request. Sometimes we carry burdens that we just don't need to carry. We worry about things. Most of the things we worry about just don't even ever happen. But if we can give all of that to God, if we can say, God, I don't understand what I'm going through now, and then down the road, I'm sure there's going to be other things that I just won't get, but I'm going to put them in your hands. And I pray that you direct me and that your will would be done in all things. I have found that God's timing is not my timing. Usually when I want something done, I want it done pretty quickly and the way that makes sense to me. But as a general rule, that doesn't seem to be the way that it turns out. Whenever I give it to God and ask Him to handle it, He handles it not the way that I would have probably, and not in the timing that I would have. But what I find is that God's timing is always the right timing. So not my will, but God's be done. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be able to live in God's timing this week. Thanks for taking the time and viewing.